Masechet Betzah Daf Amud Aleph Chodesh Tov 37A1. We were speaking about, right, in the Mishnah. If you remember, we were speaking about in the Mishnah that you're not allowed to do certain things on Shabbat and Yom Tov, whether we were talking about Divrei Mitzvah, Divrei Reshut, or Shvut. Shvut were Yisurei Derabanan. Reshut were things that were not a mitzvah, but you couldn't do. It's up to you whether you're going to do it or not. And then we had other things as well. Now we're going to the next halacha. Lo choltzim lo miyamin. Lo choltzim lo miyamin means you do not do chalitza or yibum. Okay, so remember, chalitza means that if a person passes away and he doesn't have children, so therefore they do chalitza to the wife. Chalitza to the wife means that the wife takes off the shoe, and they're going to find out whether be'emet she wants to do yibum or chalitza. Yibum means that she gets married to the brother, and then the child is called on the name of the deceased, the brother, right? And chalitza means that she does not get married to. Okay, so says the Gemara. Ask the Gemara, anything to do with chalitza and yibum, what is it? It's a mitzvah. So says the Gemara, v'ha mitzvah kavid, you're doing a mitzvah. So answers the Gemara, la tzricha, what are we dealing with? Right, the ika gadol, that there's a person that he's going to be a greater brother, meaning a brother that is older, u'mitzvah begadol yaben, which means that if you have a list of brothers, right, one brother got married to a woman, he died without children, so now you have to do yibum or chalitza. Who's the one that's supposed to do it? The mitzvah is going to be on the eldest brother. So because of that, that's why the mitzvah is on the eldest. Since the ikar al-chiyuv is on the eldest, so therefore to do with any other brother that's going to do it, it's called reshut. It's not called a mitzvah, because the mitzvah is obviously on the eldest in order to do so. So all these, right, isurim, right, all these isurim mishum reshut. Right? What's the reasoning of their isuram? So now we're on the next ones. If you remember, we were speaking about certain things that you're not allowed to do. Why? Because of writing. What does it mean because of writing? Which means that if you're going to come and you're going to do, whether it's going to be chalitza or for example, irusin, right? Or all these different things, maybe you're going to start writing. The fact that you're going to start writing, they made a decree you're not allowed to do all these things on Shabbat. Why? Because maybe you're going to, technically, what's the isur? You didn't really do anything wrong. But the problem might be is you're going to start coming and writing. So the fact that you're going to start coming and writing, that's why it's going to be prohibited. Okay? Ve'eluhem mishum mitzvah. These are the ones which are now mishum mitzvah. So we spoke about the shvut, which was going on a tree, riding on an animal, all these things. Now we spoke about reshut, right? Which was not shvut, reshut. Reshut means things which is not isur d'rabanan, but it's not really a mitzvah. So we spoke about whether it's chalitza, yibum, judging. Now we're going to speak about mitzvah. What is a mitzvah? Lo magdishin, lo marichim, lo machrimin. You're not allowed to do hekdesh, erech, and cherem. So we know cherem means you're going to consecrate all your properties or all your things to the Bet HaMikdash. That's called cherem. Erech means your value. I'm going to put my value or your value or anybody else's value towards the Bet HaMikdash. And the hekdesh means I'm consecrating something towards the Bet HaMikdash. Okay, so it says, why are you not allowed to do all these things? So it's a decree. What's the decree? It's mekach umemka. Mekach umemka means that it looks like that I'm coming and I'm going to be doing business. So it looks like business. You're doing business transactions. You're coming, you're giving things to the Bet HaMikdash, back and forth. Because of that, it's going to be prohibited. Okay, so these are the reasoning why these three things are going to be prohibited, even though they are a mitzvah. Okay, the last isur of the Mishnah was velo magbin trumot u'masrot. You're not allowed to do trumot u'masrot, which means you're not allowed to separate trumot u'masrot. So ask the Gemara, Pshita, obviously you're not going to be taking off Trumot Masrot. So Tani Rav Yosef comes and he answers, Lo nitzecha, what do we deal with? Ela litzena lakohen bo bayom. I'm not allowed to separate it on Yom Tov, even if I want to give it to the Kohen on Yom Tov, right? Which means, because they don't see that the Retzon Mafrish is to eat the perot, which are leftovers. And, right, they only see that he's taking it to the Kohen. So because of that, I would say that he's not mekaven to fix the fruits, but he's just have a kavanah to give to the Kohen the truma that he had to give him, right, to make him happy on Yom Tov. So basically, I would have thought to say that there's no isur of tikkun. Kamash Malan comes teach you that there's going to be an isur of tikkun. Remember, tikkun means that I'm fixing something. So when I'm going to come and I'm going to separate trumot masrot from a food, I'm fixing it. So I would have had a havamina that since I'm coming and I'm giving it to the Kohen, so I'm making him happy. Imagine right now a Kohen comes and all of a sudden he comes and he sees that on Yom Tov I bring him a big basket of fruits or he's going to be very happy. Simchat Yom Tov all of a sudden became double, right? Mashmalan comes teach you over here that it's still in the Isur of Tikkun, which means that if I'm going to separate Trumot and Masorot, I'm fixing my pile of fruit, or I'm fixing whatever that I have, and therefore it's going to be Asur. Vehanemile, when are these words? Pede de Tvile. We're talking about perot, which are tevulim, which means that they become tevel, right? From when? Me'etmol, from yesterday, which is going to be Erev Yom Tov. Aval pede de Tvile aina, but perot, which became only tevel now. Kegon, for example, Isa. For example, I made an Isa on Yom Tov, right? I made dough on Yom Tov. And now it becomes tevel. And now I have to separate chala, la frusha mila chala. So there, mafreshinam, there you're allowed to separate it. Why? Because I couldn't have done it on Yom Tov. Meaning, if I could have done it on Erev Yom Tov, I'm not allowed to do it on Yom Tov. So on Erev Yom Tov, I could have taken off the Trumot Masrot. If I didn't do that, and now it's Yom Tov, I'm not allowed to do it. However, though, if it's something that only became Chayav on Yom Tov, for example, I started making dough and I'm going to bake on Yom Tov. Can I take off challah before? There was no dough. There was nothing here. Only now I could take off challah. It's on Yom Tov. In that case, you're allowed to take it off. Yavil al Kohen, and you're allowed to give it to the Kohen. Okay? So now the Gemara is going to say, Vehane, right? These things that we said in the Mishnah, which is the Reshut, Mishum Reshut Ika, Mishum Shvut Leka. Are you only going to tell them that it only has, like, there's a little bit of a mitzvah, but there's no Shvut? Vehane Mishum Mitzvah Ika, Mishum Shvut Leka. But these ones, there's only mitzvah, but there's no Isurim de Rabbanan. Right? What does that mean? Sometimes, why do we make a differentiation between Reshut, Mitzvah, Shvut? Sometimes you have all of them in the same case. Sometimes you have the right, or some of them they're all mitzvot, some of them they're all reshut, some of them are all. Why do we differentiate? So Amar Rabbi Yitzchak says Rabbi Yitzchak, Lo mi baya kama. We don't even need to mention it. What does that mean? Lo mi baya means that we don't need to mention this, but you can mention this. But you don't need to mention this, but you could still mention this. Right? That's the concept. So he says like this: Lo mi baya shevut kreidata dasur. You don't have to tell me that obviously if it's only going to be a shvut, that it's going to be a sur. Elafilu shvut de reshut. Even if it's going to be a shvut of a reshut, nami asur. It's going to be asur. Velomi by shvut the reshut asur, and not only is it going to be shvut the reshut is going to be asur, elafil shvut mitzvah nami asur. Even if it's shvut mitzvah, which means that each one was coming to teach you a higher level. That don't tell me no that A is going to be asur, but B would be mutar. B is asur. Don't tell me that B is asur, but C is mutar. Even C is going to be mutar asur. Everything is going to be asur. That's what it's called. Lomi baya ka'amar. Lomi baya ka'amar means I didn't even need to mention this, right? But then even this. Right? That means the bigger chidush is on the second case, not the first case. Okay? Fine. We are now by the two dots. The two dots said, Kol elu b'yom tov amru. This is all said on Yom Tov. Kal v'chomer on Shabbat, that these halachot apply. So says the Gemara, unminhu, we have a contradiction. What's the contradiction between this Mishnah and the previous Mishnah on Lamed Hamud Bet? Mashlim derech haruba b'yom tov, aval lo b'Shabbat. You told me, right, like it sounded like a general rule. These things are prohibited on Yom Tov. Kal v'chomer or kol sheken, or the more so on Shabbat. Yeah, that's what we just said. Okay, that's what we want to say. These things are prohibited on Yom Tov. Kol sheken on Shabbat. Yeah, in the previous Mishnah, we saw the opposite. That on Yom Tov it's permitted and not on Shabbat.
You said some people are more relaxed on Yom Tov.
Very good. So 1 second. So says the Gemara, Mashilim, what was the stira? The stira was from the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, Mashilim derech haruba b'Yom Tov lo Shabbat. You're allowed to bring down the fruits, right, from the roof on Yom Tov through the window on Yom Tov, but not on Shabbat. So what is more strict, Shabbat or Yom Tov, right? Shabbat. So what do you tell me that if it's prohibited on Yom Tov, so Kal v'chomer Shabbat, here you see that it's permitted on Yom Tov and not on Shabbat. So Amar Rav Yosef says, La kashya, it's not a question. Ha Rabbi Eliezer, our Mishnah that says that any shvut which is prohibited on Shabbat, they prohibited on Yom Tov, and even in a place of Hefsed Mamon, is going to be Shitat Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, that we found in another place that he didn't permit any type of a shvut because of Tircha on Yom Tov, even, right, for losing money. Okay, that means we didn't permit any type of a shvut. Okay, Ha Rabbi Yoshua, one of them is Rabbi Yoshua. Right? What does it mean, Rabbi Yoshua? He says the Mishnah Kodemet, the previous Mishnah was Rabbi Yoshua, that he says, he argues on Rabbi Eliezer, and he permits any type of Tircha on Yom Tov in order to save yourself from losing money. Remember that in the previous Mishnah, what was the reason why you're bringing the fruits through the window? To become exempt from Trumat Masrot?
To protect it from the rain.
Even though it does become exempt. What? Protect it from the rain. It was going to start raining. It was going to ruin the fruits. It was on the gag. It was on the roof. Because I put it there to dry. So then we said that you're allowed to bring it inside the house, right? And there's no problem. Why? I've said mamon. he says Rabbi Yoshua permitted because of some moment. Means even though there is tircha, meaning it's bothersome. You're coming, you're trying to work, you're trying to bring all the fruits inside. You're allowed to do it because of tircha b'mkom ifsed. That you're allowed to. That's Rabbi Yoshua. So that's why there's no contradiction. Which one?
If you're going to know that his food didn't get ruined, what kind of Yom Tov is it?
Tanya, as we learned in a Beitzah. Yeah, we learned in a Beitzah as follows. Yeah, otovet beno. What is otovet beno? So we know otovet beno is basically an animal and its child. So now we know that you're not allowed to do shechita to an animal and its child on the same day. That's called otovet beno lo tishchatu b'yom echad. Yeah, you're not allowed to do shechita to the mother and the child on the same day. Yeah, yes, there's halakha.
Mother and child and mother also?
Yeah, there's no
Whoever
difference.
you start with, it doesn't matter?
Doesn't matter. Yeah, it's called otovet beno. So now what happens now if you have otovet beno shenaflu lebor? It fell into a pit on Yom Tov. Now, how are you going to do it? Now, we know that you're not allowed to do tircha to bring the animal outside on Yom Tov unless you have in mind to do shechita. Now, they both fell into the pit. So now how am I going to do it? It's Yom Tov. I cannot bring them both out because then I would have to do shechita to both. And we just said that you're not allowed to do shechita to both. So I'm in a pit. Yeah, I'm in a bind. What am I going to do? Yeah, so what am I going to do? I can't take them both out. If I take them both out, it's in a problem. Yeah, because how do I do shechita to both?
This rule applies for
The Tanya, as we learned in the Beitzah, Otov beno shenaflu lebor, so it fell into a pit. Rabbi Eliezer says, Ma'ale et harishon al menat leshochto. Yeah, bring up the first one in order to do shechita. Then the shochto, right? And now if you're obligated to do shechita, right? V'asheni oseh lo parnasa b'mkomo kedei shelo yemut. So what do? Listen carefully. The first one you take out of the pit, and you're going to do shechita to it, because you're obligated to do shechita to it. The second one that stays in the pit, because you're not allowed to bring it out. So what do? You give him mezonot in the pit, meaning you put food for the animal in the pit, in order that it doesn't die. Because remember, you can't bring him up. Fine. Rabbi Yoshua says, you bring the first one in order to do shechita. But you don't do shechita. Then you do harama. What's harama? You bring up the second one, male ashani. Now you decide which one to do shechita. You have to do shechita. We're not talking about that you're not going to do shechita. For sure, you're doing shechita. But you only allowed to do shechita one, we said. Not allowed to do shechita two. So what are you going to do? You're going to bring up the first one. And then afterwards, you're going to say, you know what? Maybe the other one's better. You bring up the second one. Now you decide which one to do shechita.
And you push the other one back?
No. You're not to push the other one. Once it's out, it's out.
How do you know that they're brothers and sisters?
It's a father and mother and the son.
They have the same last
They're
name?
yours. Exactly. They're the same last name.
No, it's the mother.
You don't know which one. If you had animals, you know. By the way, go to a farm. They know very, very well. This is the mother. This is the son. This is the one. That one.
He's the grandson.
Maybe they have the leash with their name.
No, but they know.
No,
They know their animals. Adam yodea nefesh behemto. Yeah, a person understands his animalistic features. Says the Gemara, Amar le Abaye. Abaye comes and he says, Mimai, right? How do we know to compare all these cases? Maybe over there, when Rabbi Eliezer is coming and he's going to start coming and comparing all these cases together, right? He comes and he says, there, it was possible to do parnasa, right? But in our case, when you have fruits that are on the roof, that you're not allowed, you can't do any parnasa with it over there. Lo, so maybe Be'emet, Rabbi Eliezer is not going to tell you, right? He's not going to be osir the tircha b'yom tov, which means like this. What were we trying to do? We were trying to bring a machloka between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua, right? And we wanted to, after bringing, right, this machloka between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua, we wanted to say that Rabbi Yoshua was mekel, and he permits an isur of tircha yom tov to stop you from money, and Rabbi Eliezer, right, is osir, he's machmid, and he's osir even if it's going to be ifsed mamon, right? That's what we tried to do. We wanted to bring a proof, right? Again, one more time, we're trying to bring a machloka Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yoshua, whether you're going to be osir in a place where they have ifsed mamon or not. Okay, so what we want to do now is comes Abaye and he says, right, like this. Maybe Be'emet, who was the one that was machmid? Rabbi Eliezer, correct? Rabbi Eliezer was the one that was machmid. It says over here, no. Rabbi Eliezer was machmid at the beginning. Why? Because Rabbi Eliezer said that you have to bring one up and then you do parnasa to the second one. It says Dilma kalo kama Rabbi Eliezer hata. Maybe Rabbi Eliezer only holds of it over there. Ela devshar beparnasa. In the case of the boar, one of the animals you could have given it to eat in the boar and left it there. Okay, aval hacha. But in our case, delo evshar beparnasa, that you cannot come and be mefarnes the perot, right, in its place, which means you can't save it in any other way. How are you going to save it? I'm saying you have to put it inside the house. It's the only way you're going to save it. So maybe the Emet, Rabbi Eliezer does not osir the tilcha in order to save them, right? So that's number one. Meaning, why are you comparing the case of the otov beno to the case of the fruits on the roof? Maybe it's not comparable. Maybe in the case of the roof, everybody would agree you're allowed to bring them down, right? You're not going to bring a Rabbi Eliezer that's going to be osir, because Rabbi Eliezer was osir only in the case of otov beno. In order for what? In order because you could have done parnasah bimkomo. Inami, or another way to differentiate between the two cases. In the case of the fruits, which are going to be on the roof, and they could become ruined, Rabbi Yoshua says over there that you're allowed to come and say that what? You could do harama. But in the case of the fruits, there's no harama. So lo, which means like this. Now we're going to flip the coin on the other side. What's the flip of the coin on the other side? In the case of Rabbi Yoshua, of Otov Beno, can you do harama? What's harama? Like a trick type of a thing. You could do a trick. What's a trick? I'm going to bring one up, and then I'm going to say, you know what? Maybe the other one's better. I'm going to bring the second one up, and then I decide which one to do shechitatu. So there, I'm the one that's deciding where I'm going to do shechitatu. That's very good. I could do harama. In the case of the fruits, there's no harama, right? You can't do harama. What harama are you going to do, right? Which one?
Cover them. That could be harama.
No, but that's not harama. That's you're doing tircha. You're coming and you're trying to cover something, right? But here the question is, what harama? You cannot do any type of harama. But rather Rav Papa says, "La kashasan of stira." Ha bet Shammai bet Hillel. It all depends whether it's bet Shammai or bet Hillel. The Tanam we learned in the Mishnah. Bet Shammai omrim. Bet Shammai says, "Em mutzin lo et hakatan velo et halulav velo et sefer Torah lirshut harabim." You're not allowed to take out not the katan, not the lulav, right, or not the sefer Torah lirshut harabim on Yom Tov. That means according to this shita of Bet Shammai, you're not allowed to carry on Yom Tov. What does that mean? I'm not allowed to take not the katan or the lulav or sefer Torah in the Reshut Rabim. Why? Because taking out to the Reshut Rabim for not reason, a child, a minor, right? So he says why? Because doing that is going to be a sur b'Yom Tov mina Torah. Bet Hillel says you're allowed to. Why? Because according to Bet Hillel, hotzah shelo letzorech is also going to be mutar on Yom Tov. Okay, so according to Bet Shammai, hotzah is going to be a sur mina Torah. So I'm going to say that the rabbis prohibited things which are lo letzorech Yom Tov, even in Reshut Yachid, because of Gezerah, because of Reshut Rabim. Okay, so now it says the Gemara. So now it comes out like this. According to Bet Hillel, it comes out that Hotza'ah Shelo Letzorech is not a Surah B'Yom Tov Mina Torah. So the rabbis never prohibited you to do anything. So that's why, right? So I could say that B'Mkom Hefsed, which means that in order for me to save myself from any type of Hefsed, the rabbis were lenient, right, of Tircha B'Yom Tov. Right? Why? Because I'm going to lose money. So therefore they said, you know what? If you're going to lose money, the rabbis say, I don't make the decree of Tircha on Yom Tov. Tircha, usually you're not allowed to work on Yom Tov. You're not allowed to work for no reason on Yom Tov. But if you're going to lose money, the rabbi said, you know what? I can close my eye. You're allowed to. No problem. Okay? No. Not because of that. The rabbis never made the decree. Right? The rabbis never made such a decree. Okay? The Chachamim were the ones that they went and they prohibited the tircha for lo letzorech. So they were the same ones that said, you know what? When it's going to be upset, they're going to say you could be lenient. Okay? So says the Gemara, Dilma lohi. Maybe it's not true. Why? We're not going to say this only over there. That's only talking about hotzah. Hotzah means that you're taking from one reshut to another reshut. Aval tintul, but on tintul, which is within the reshut yachid, there was no gezerah. Right? Maybe they're not going to be machmirim. Which means like this. What did you want to do? We wanted to bring a proof from Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel. Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel are talking about hotzah. Hotzah means I'm taking from one property to another property. That is going to be a sur, maybe according to Bet Shammai, v'chule. But here, it's in the same reshut. It's on my roof. My roof and my house is the same. It's not reshut rabim, reshut yachid. It's all reshut yachid. It's all my property. So therefore, it's going to be a completely different, right? It was completely different. Which one?
It's not a question of tircha. It's a question.
No. Since it's the same reshut,
Yes.
so therefore you cannot bring me a proof from Bet Shammai to be osir. What we are trying to do is we're trying to find people that are going to be osir. So in the beginning we wanted to bring the machlok between Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Eliezer, we said you can't compare those two cases. Then we brought another machlok between Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel. He says you also can't compare those two cases. Why? It's a completely different case, right? One is talking about outside and inside, and one is talking about in the same reshut. Okay, so now says the Gemara, right? Atu tiltula v'tzorech hotzah. Answers the Gemara. 1 second. Tiltul and reshut hayachid was also for hotzah. Everything was one thing. So therefore, according to Bet Shammai, you would make such a decree, right? And therefore, it's going to be shayechet even in tiltul tzorech minyatev said. So therefore, we could actually say that both Mishnayot, one of them is Bet Shammai, another one is Bet Hillel. Meaning we had a contradiction between two different Mishnayot, right? One Mishnah, well, exactly. One Mishnah was Bet Shammai, one Mishnah was Bet Hillel. Now we could say that. At the beginning, we want to say you couldn't say that. Now we're saying you could say that. Why? Tiltul was also prohibited because of hotza'ah. And since Tiltul is prohibited because of hotza'ah, just like Bet Shammai prohibit hotza'ah, so too they would prohibit Tiltul also for no reason. So here, the one that says that you're not allowed to do that is because of Bet Shammai. One that says you are allowed to is going to be Bet Hillel. According to Bet Hillel, you're allowed to do it, right, without any problem. Okay? We're on the next Mishnah, Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph, on the bottom. Okay? Habema ve'akelim, keraglei be'alim. So this Mishnah has to do with tchumin. Remember that the concept of the tchum is that you're not allowed to go outside of the tchum, right, on Shabbat and Yom Tov. Now remember that the tchum on Shabbat and Yom Tov is going to be affixed from the time at the beginning of Ben Hashmashot. Okay, so now from wherever you are residing, or we're going to speak about different things, but wherever you are residing, you're allowed to come and you're allowed to, how do you say the word? You're allowed to travel, right, from one place to another, any direction that you want, 2,000 amot. 2,000 amot is a tchum of alpayim amot of Shabbat, so that you're allowed to travel. Okay? From, well, yes, obviously, from the city, but from where you are. From where you are, you have alpayim amot. If you're in the city, so the entire city, right, is nothing, because the entire city is the daled amot. Okay, but we're talking about from outside of the city, you start daled amot. But if I'm outside of the city, so from wherever you are, you have alpayim amot lechol ruach. You have alpayim amot every single direction.
So that's 1
Okay,
kilometer.
well, that's what?
It's 1 kilometer.
Alpayim amot is 9. It's just under a kilometer for the Grachnai, and according to Chazon Ish, it's just over a kilometer. Okay, I think it's like 970, 930 meters. I think it was, and then just over a kilometer for according to the Chazon Ish. Okay, abema ve'akelim. So animals and utensils. Okay, to do with tchumin, they are like raglei be'alim. They are like the regalim, the legs of their owners, which means you're not allowed to take them outside of the alpayim amah of their owners. Okay, so therefore, right, if for example they didn't come and they didn't do eruvet tchumin, so you're only allowed to go within the alpayim amot of where they were. So again, utensils are animals, right? Where's their alpayim amah? Their owners. Find out who's the owner. Wherever his alpayim amot are, that's where their alpayim amot are. Says the Mishnah, Hamosek be'emto livno o laroeh. If somebody's going to give his animal to his son or to his shepherd on Yom Tov, harelu keraglei be'alim. They also are going to go only according to the tchum of their owners, and not according to the tchum of the son or of the roeh, which is the shepherd. Why? Because since at the beginning of the onset of Yom Tov, it was not in the hands of the son or the shepherd. So therefore, it goes according to the one that had the beginning of Yom Tov. So at the beginning of the even though in the middle of Yom Tov, I went and I gave it to my shepherd, or I gave it to my son, and he has a completely different tchum, doesn't matter. It goes according to mine. But at the beginning of Yom Tov, it was in my hands. Okay. Next, imagine right now you have utensils which are designated for one of the brothers in the house, which means a father passes away and he leaves an inheritance, but they didn't separate it. They didn't divide the inheritance. Okay, so therefore they're all living in the same house, and there are certain kelim which are going to be for now one brother. So that means they already know that this axe or this whatever it is going to only belong to one of the brothers. So then it goes according to his legs, meaning his tchum. But if it's not going to be miyuchad to one of the brothers, so then it's something where all the brothers are able to go. Meaning wherever all the brothers are able to travel, they're allowed to travel. Wherever they can't, they can't. If you're going to come and borrow a utensil from your friend, from Erev Yom Tov, so then it's like the one that borrowed it. So I went and I borrowed from him a Gemara. So if I borrow from him a Gemara, so now it's according to mine. Because even though it belongs to him, but I borrowed it and I have permission of using it. So therefore, since I borrowed it on Erev Yom Tov, so now Yom Tov comes in, I'm allowed to take this Gemarot, whatever it is, to whichever place that I want. Okay? Kiragleh Shoel. B'Yom Tov, if I borrowed it on Yom Tov itself, Kiragleh HaMash'il. So then it's like the legs of the Mash'il. Mash'il is the lender, not the borrower, the lender. Why? Because at the beginning of Yom Tov, it was in his possession. Okay? The same halacha would apply now, right? To a woman. Imagine right now a woman comes and she borrows spices, right, on Yom Tov, or water or salt for her dough. So now here, so once she mixes everything together, it belongs to both of them. What does that mean, belong to both of them? You could only walk in a direction which goes to both of them. Because since at the Knisa of Yom Tov, the beginning of Yom Tov, the Tivalanim, right, the spices, the water and the salt, were in the one that's lending it. So then it's her tchum. But the other things, right, came from her. So because of that, they both put everything together. So now it's like both of them. So now you could only go the maximum of what both of them were able to travel. Rabbi Yehuda poter b'mayim. Rabbi Yehuda says that if right now one woman lent another woman, right, or she borrowed from another woman water, right, and she mixed it in, it does not go after both of them. Okay, because water is not why? Because it doesn't have a mashut, which means that since the water gets sucked into the tafshil and the isan, it's not nikar. So if the water cannot limit my tchum, so the water will not come and put like a limit on where am I able to travel. Okay, that was until now. That was the entire Mishnah. Again, just telling us where are you able to travel, right, and so on and so forth. The Gemara says now like this: Matznit in our Mishnah, Lamezayin Amubet 37b, is not like Rabbi Dosa. The location Rabbi Dosa. Why? The time was going to the right there. Rabbi Dosa says, Rabbi Shaul says, Halokach be'emat mechavero me'erev Yom Tov. If you're going to purchase a be'eman, an animal, from your friend on Erev Yom Tov, even though he didn't give it to you, ela b'Yom Tov, that means he only gave it to you on Yom Tov itself. It's like the purchaser, okay? Which means that you're allowed, it's permitted for the purchaser to come and to go his entire tchum, right? And he's not going to be mugbal to the tchum of the mocher. Why? Because since at the beginning of Yom Tov, right, he was already in the hands of the lokeach ki'ilu. So the rabbi said it was in the reshut lokeach, also to do with tchumin, even though it wasn't physically in his possession, right? So again, I went and I purchased an animal, and Philip Cohen had the animal, so I purchased it from him. And now what happens is I'm allowed to come to him and I'm allowed to take it wherever I want, to where I was allowed to do it. Because even though it was never in my hands on Erev Yom Tov, the fact that I purchased it on Erev Yom Tov, it's mine. And somebody that's going to give an animal to a shepherd, right? It's like a raglei aroeh. So you see from here that our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Dosa. Because according to Rabbi Dosa, when you give it to your shepherd, it's normal that you give it to your shepherd. So since it's normal that you give it to your shepherd, it's like you have the legs of the shepherd, not your legs. So therefore, even though you only gave it to him on Yom Tov, so that means our Mishnah is obviously not like Rabbi Dosa. So says the Gemara, no. Afilu tema Rabbi Dosa. Even if you want to say, you could say that it's going like Rabbi Dosa. Velakashi asked a question. Kan beroeh echad, kan mishne roim. One of them we're talking about one roeh, which means that since all Bnei Ayir are putting their animals, right, in this reshut, right, so everyone knows at the beginning of Yom Tov, they're all giving it to the same roeh, because there's only one shepherd in the city. So these all of them, they're giving him to the same shepherd. Kan mishne roim. Here we're talking about that there's two different shepherds. So since there's two different shepherds, and we don't know at the beginning of the day to which shepherd you're going to give it to, so that's why it goes according to your tchum and not the tchum of the shepherd, because which shepherd? You don't know. There's two shepherds, so you don't know which one you're going to give it to. Daiki nami diktani, you could also deduce it from the Mishnah, right? When it says, "Amoser be'emto livno ol roeh," if you're giving your animal to your son or to the roeh, to the shepherd, shemamina. So it's mashma. There wasn't baru that you were going to give it to them. So shemamina comes from to teach you from here that obviously we're talking about two different shepherds, and that's why we said that it goes according to your legs and not according to the legs of the shepherd. Amar Rabba Bar Chana Rabbi Yochanan says Rabbi Chana named Rabbi Yochanan. Halacha is like Rabbi Dosa. The halacha is like Rabbi Dosa that if you give it to your shepherd on Yom Tov, it goes according to the shepherd. Okay, that's the halacha. So says the Gemara, Umiyam Rabbi Yochanan Hachid, does Rabbi Yochanan actually say that? Rabbi Yochanan says halacha ki samishna, halacha is like a samishna. Habe'ema ve'akelim ki raglei ha'be'alim. The be'ema and the kelim, animals and the utensils, are like the raglei ha'be'alim, are like the ones of the owners. So how could it be that Rabbi Yochanan then is going to paskin like Rabbi Dosa, which goes against this? right? The Rabbi Dosa says halacha is like the Stam Mishnah, and then 2 seconds later you just said that the name of Yochanan halacha is like Rabbi Dosa. You go after the shepherd. So it says the Gemara, "Velo kimna kam be'oroyecha kamishnurim." He says, what's the question? We just said that our Mishnah is dealing with two shepherds. Rabbi Yochanan is dealing with one shepherd. If it's one shepherd, it goes after the shepherd. If it's two shepherds, it goes after you. Why does it go after you? Because you don't know you don't know which one you're taking it. Okay? Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in the Beitzah. Shnaim sheshalu chaluk echad b'shutafut. What happens if you have two people that they went and they borrowed a chaluk on Erev Yom Tov? One of them wanted to use it in the morning to go to the Bet HaMidrash, and the other one, he wants to use it in Arvit to go to the Bet HaMishteh. So now, since each one is going to a different direction, right? One of them went to the north, one of them went to the south. So now what are you going to do then? You go one talit, you both borrow the talit. One person is going to use the talit in the morning, one person is going to use the talit in the nighttime. But now each one had to do the eruv in a different direction. One in the north and one in the south. So it says, so the maximum that you could travel to the north is like the person that went to the south. And the one that's going to the south, the one that did the eruv in the south, could go to the south, just like the maximum that you went to the north. Okay, everyone understood? One more time. I've got the city in the middle. I've got north and south. Okay, we both, right? David and myself, we come and we borrowed a clothing. Yeah, we're going to use this clothing. I'm going to use it in the shachrit. He's going to use it in Arvit. I went and I made it in the south. He went and he made it in the north. So now we have a technical problem. Why do we do that? Because I wanted to continue going south and he wanted to continue going north. But now 1 second, we both borrowed it, the shutafut. So now where can we go? So says the Gemara, we're both limited to each other. So if I went and I did it in the south, I could only travel south the maximum that where he could have gone because he went and he did his eruv in the north. So therefore I take his north, I go to the south, and the maximum where he could have traveled, that's where I could travel. I made it in the south and I could have, no, but I'm dependent upon him. Same thing for him. When I go to the north, I could go to the maximum of the north. Sorry, when he was going to the north, he could go to the maximum of the north where I could have traveled north because I went and I did it in the south.
Is it 2,000 amot from where?
There's the Gemara. If they put it in the middle, right, which means that between the two eruvim there is a tchum Shabbat shalem of 4,000 amot, which means that one of them put it at the end of the 2,000 amot, the other one put it at the end of the 2,000 amot. You're not allowed to move it at all. Meaning, let's say there was no city at all, or like the case that I gave you. David's when we put it to the maximum 2,000 amot to the north. I came, I put it to the maximum of the 2,000 amot to the south. You can't move it at all. Why? Because the second that you move it, you're outside your tchum, outside my tchum, and we're both dependent upon each other. Okay, you have the pictures there in the bottom, by the way. Everyone has a picture? This is the 2,000 amot. This is the 2,000 amot. This is in the middle. Okay, and this is the 2,000 in the middle. So if you put it in the middle, and each one has a 1,000, so then you're able to. But each one, this is the 2,000, which is on the outside. Okay, this is where you have the eruv. Eruv number 1, eruv number 2. Okay, so the eruv number 1 and eruv number 2. Here you have 2,000. So in this place, you can't even move it from its place. Okay, fine. Itmar, it was stated. Shnaim shelachu chavit ubeema b'shutafut. Two people that purchased on Erev Yom Tov a chavit of yain, right? So you purchased a barrel of wine. Ubeema, or an animal b'shutafut. Rav Amar Rav says chavit is muteret. The chavit is muteret to go anywhere where you want. Ubeema is going to be asur to each one to take it. Shmuel Amar and Shmuel says, right? Chavit is also going to be asur. So now we have to understand why. What's the difference? What's going on here exactly? So Micah Savar Rav, what is the shita of Rav? Rav was the one that said that the chavit is going to be permitted in any place of the tchum, but the be'ema is going to be asur. Why? So Ika Savar yesh breira, if you're going to say that there is breira, which means that that's why each shutaf is going to be allowed to. Why? Because through the chalukah, which is done at the end, it's lemafreya known where you're allowed to actually take this one. So afilu be'ema tishtere, so then even the animals should be also permitted for the same thing. V'ika Savar embreira, if you're going to tell me embreira, so then even the chavit is going to be asura. What is breira? One more time. Breira means that if I'm going to come now and I'm going to take this, there's a shutafut, half. If I'm going to drink the first half, it comes out that retroactively we already knew that the first half was mine. and then you know that the second half is his, but that's called Breda. Breda means that afterwards, retroactively, I come and I say that it was Barur, there was Breda, that I know which part went to which. But if you're going to say Embreda, so if you hold a Breda, so everything should be prohibited. Also the wine and also the animal. If you hold of Embreda, so everything should be prohibited. Also the wine, also the animal. What's the difference? So says the Gemara, Leolam kasavra yesh Breda. Really, Behemet, he holds that there is Breda, but there's difference in an animal. The Shanya Behema, the difference in the animal, the what? The Chelke Behema are shayachim to the two shutafim which are together. Because the derech of Baalei Chayim is that each part of the animal is nourishing from the other part of the animal. So therefore, it's not that I could just say, listen, I'm saying that lechatchila, it's all one animal. So therefore, if it's all one animal, even though you're right, the thigh and the leg and the this and that is now going to him instead of going to me. But the fact that it's all one animal and it's all nourishing from one animal, it's all prohibited. Because I cannot take your animal, right? Because part of it is yours, and take it outside of your tomb. It's going to be in my tomb and not inside of your tomb. You can't do that. But to do with the wine, I'm only taking one part of the wine. My wine is not connected to your wine. It's two different wines. You understand? It's two different things. It's not nourishing from each other. It's just different wine, which is inside of the barrel. Okay? Amri la Rav Kahana Ravasi la. So says Rav Kahana and Ravasi to Rav, Leisur mukse lo chashashu. Chachamim do not suspect to the Isur of mukse. Leisur tchumin chashashu. Are you going to tell me to tchumin they were choshesh? Meaning, if you're going to tell me that there was no problem of mukse, right, that it's going to be makse dato. So he says, so why is there a problem then of tchumin? So Shatik Rav, he kept quiet. He didn't answer, right? He didn't answer. So my Haviyallah. So what Behemet is the answer to this question? So he says, Rabbi Yoshaya says, Yesh Breda, there is Breda. Rabbi Yochanan says, Em Breda. So says the Gemara, V'savar Rabbi Yoshaya Yesh Breda. Does Rabbi Yoshaya actually hold that there is Breda? But now we learned in the Mishnah, Hamet Babayit. When you have a person that passes away, they're in a house. You have a lot of different entrances in the house. We didn't decide which entrance we're going to take the deceased out of the house. So Kulan Tmim, all the entrances are going to be Tmim. Why? That means any type of kelim which are found in the but also in the frame, the door frame, right, of the house, it's all going to be Tameh. Niftach echamen, but the second that you're going to come, you're going to open up one of the entrances in order to take out the met. Hu Tameh, the Kulan Tehorim. So that one is going to be Tameh, that entrance, and all the other ones are going to be Tehorim. If you already thought of taking it out of one of them, or you want to take him out through a window which has 4x4 tfachim, so that's going to save on all the other entrances that now they're not going to be to me. So Bet Shammai comes and he says, but that was only if you thought about it before the person passed away. Bet Hillel says no, even if after the person passed away, you're still allowed to come and think about which entrance you're going to pass, take the deceased out, and then it's going to save the rest of them that they're not going to be to me. We say it. Amar Rav Oshia says, we're all talking about purifying it for the future, but not from before. And that means not before you decided. Meaning before you decided, everything's tameh. Now that you decide which entrance you're going to take the deceased out, now the rest of the entrances are pure, and this entrance is going to become impure. So says the Gemara, Mikanu Laba'in. The Mafreya lo. So that's only Mikanu Laba'in, not the Mafreya. So says the Gemara, Epuch. You have to switch the Shita of Rabbi Yochanan and Rav Oshia to do with the Chavit and the Behema, which means that you have to switch it. Rav Oshia says there's no Breira, and Rabbi Yochanan was the one that says Breira, because if not, then you have a contradiction with this case. Here, Rav Oshia was saying, L'tayret Tachim Mikanu Laba'in, Mikanu Laba'in, yes, Mafreya lo, which means that we don't hold the Breira, right? So, and before you just said that Rav Oshia says that there is Breira. Okay? So says the Gemara, Umit le Rabbi Yochanan Breira, but does Rabbi Yochanan hold the Breira? V'amar Ravasi am Rabbi Yochanan. Says Ravasi name Rabbi Yochanan. Ha'achin shechalku lechoten machzirin ze b'ze b'yovel. Do you know that when you have brothers that they came and they inherited something, they're all considered that they purchased it, right? Because we don't know exactly which ones we're going to do, right, at the time that each one had it during the time when the parent passed away. So therefore, we don't know which portion goes to which one. So because of that, machzirin ze b'yovel. Since each one is considered a purchaser, it goes back in Yovel. Remember in Yovel, everything goes back to its original status quo. So in Yovel, everything goes back to what, to the state, if you want to call it. Okay, everything goes back to the state. So says the Gemara, if you're going to tell me, Right? When does Rabbi Yochanan hold of Breira? Only in a Doraita, but in the Rabbanan, Itle, he does hold Breira. That means if you're going to tell me now that according to Rabbi Yochanan, when does he say, right, that means basically when does Rabbi Yochanan not hold of Breira? Only in a Doraita, right? Why? Because obviously in a Doraita it's much more stricter. So if we're there, he doesn't hold the Breira. But if it's going to be the Rabbanan, it's much more lenient. There you could do Breira. With the Rabbanan, does he hold the Breira even in the Rabbanan? The Tane Ayo. Ayo taught. Remember, Ayo is the name of a rabbi, right? That's his name, Ayo. Okay, so Ayo taught. Rabbi Yehuda says, En adam matne al shne dvarim, right? Keechad. A person cannot come and start making a condition on two things, right, which are impossible, basically, which, like on two different things. Ela, im bach cham la mizrach, ruvel la mizrach, the marav ruvel la mizrach, v'ilu lekan lo, which means like this. Imagine right now, I heard that there's going to be an incredible shiur, but I don't know where. I don't know if it's going to be in the north or in the south. I know there's a big rabbi coming. I want to go hear the rabbi, but I don't know if it's in the north or in the south. So now what do? I'm allowed to do an incredible concept, which is called, I'm going to set up two different stations for my tchum. I'm going to put one in the north and one in the south. And then I make a condition. If the rabbi comes to the north, so the one in the north is my eruv, right? And the one in the south is nothing. But if the rabbi came to the south, so then the one in the south is my eruv, and the one in the north is nothing. And I'm allowed to do that. But I can't take both. Meaning I cannot use both, because that's a contradiction, obviously, right? The stira, you can't do stirot. But you're allowed to take whether it's to the north or whether it's to the south. So that's what he says over here,
If there is
right?
a situation, he goes to the south and realizes he's not there.